Hello, everybody. It's Rob from Revelation Rain, and I'm continuing a series of some of the merch that we now have available with a little bit of background on each one of these items as well. I just got done recording a video for our debut album, Vengeance is Mine. That video is already up. If you haven't watched it, please do so. Today, I want to talk about our second album, which is called Day of the Lord. Revelation Rain, Day of the Lord. This was another marathon recording session. I think we took 5 or 6 days on this one. And we went in and we just nailed it. Track after track after track. The first album had 10 songs. This one has 14. This record came out April 29th, 2021. I remember that because that's my stepmother's birthday. Which was approximately, August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April. Approximately 8 months after our first record. So we were kind of, our idea, and I say our, probably more so Grant and I, our idea was to kind of mimic what Kiss was doing in their early years, which about every 8 months a new record was coming out. And we were hoping to do, all right, we'll do the first 3 albums, then we'll do a live one. 3 more records, do a live one. It worked for them, maybe it worked for us. Anyway, we went in this time. The band had been together, obviously much longer. We had more times to work on tunes. So everybody was bringing songs in. I brought, again, I had an arsenal of songs. A lot of them, 8 of them, ended up on the first record. But I still had some left in the pipeline, songs that I had written many, many years before. But I also had written some new ones. So those were brought in. JT and Marty also brought some tracks in. And then Grant, the guy who always said, I don't write songs, I just, add my drum parts. He was always kind of downplaying his role. In the fact of the matter is, and I wish, this is my one regret, is that we would have just put on the record songs written by Revelation Rain. Because even if I bring a song to the band, everybody adds their parts, which means they've written something about that. But a lot of times arrangements would change, harmonies would change, melodies might change slightly. Everybody was adding and contributing. So in essence, that's part of songwriting. And I wish we would have just done that. Songs by Revelation Rain, whatever. But we didn't. So anyway, everyone was bringing tracks in. And Grant does have a co-write on this record because he inadvertently helped me with a song called We Are the Night. And I'll get to that in a moment. But anyway, we returned to Soundfield. At the time it was called Soundfield Studio. Now it's called Liberty Flagship, I believe. Run by Pete Bass. And he had produced our first record, and we knew we wanted him to do the second album as well. Now, when we went in, we were much better prepared this time. Pete and Marty had gotten there before the rest of us and had set up the studio with some really cool miking and recording techniques that they wanted to try out to give the album a much broader sound, a little more scope in its presentation. And it shows on this album in so many different ways. And we all brought so many ideas, not just the songs themselves, but like, okay, let's add this little part, or let's do this, let's do that. And I'm going to try to remember all of those as I go through these tracks. But this, when it first came out, like I said, April 29th of 2021, was available on CD and then all of the streaming platforms as well. And the CD was through CD Baby. We ran through, I think, 2 or 3 pressings of this one as well. It did really well for us. But it is no longer available on CD because not that we've ended our affiliation with CD Baby. They still have the record available on all the streaming platforms. It's just we haven't ordered new CDs because the band's been inactive for over 2 years. But this is now available for you to buy. And I'm going to put links in the comment section. I just recently put this together, had it released through Elastic Stage. So you can buy this record, which is called Day of the Lord. This is our second album. Day of the Lord by Revelation Rain. You can buy this on Elastic Stage. Again, the link will be in the comment section. I put this together probably 2 or 3 months ago, 3 or 4 months ago. I don't know. Actually, it's been longer than that. Today is January 17th. I bet you it was back in August, September. Time goes so fast. But anyway, that's when I put it together, got it released through Elastic Stage. The only issue is they would not allow me to do a double album, which is what I wanted to do because, as I said, this has 14 tracks. For optimal sound, you don't want more than 25, but I'd say like 22 or 23 minutes on each side of the vinyl. Otherwise, it starts to diminish the quality of the recording. They would only allow me to do a single album. So I had to make some really tough decisions as to, okay, what tracks can I leave off? Because I could only fit 10 tracks. There's 6 on one side because a couple of the songs are rather short, and then 4 on the other because they're longer tracks. So the CD track list, the CD track listing and the vinyl track listing are different, slightly. But what I ended up doing is later on I went through, and I don't have a copy of it myself yet, is I went through and I made a second album called Day of the Lord, The Other Sides, and it has the 4 tracks that were not able to fit on this one, on the actual album release. So you can buy that as well. Again, link will be in the comments. So let's talk about this one, Day of the Lord. Again, we went into the studio with Pete Bass. We had all the songs written. Some of them were older songs, at least as far as I'm concerned, that I was, again, ahead of my pipeline. I just brought those with me. And then I had written some new ones as well. And to fast forward a little bit, had we done a third album, I only had 1 or 2 songs left in the pipeline of older songs. And as strange as this might sound, I was only going to bring one of them, a song called Seduced and Abandoned, which we'd actually rehearsed a couple of times. I don't know if we played it live or not. We may have. But it would not have fit thematically on what we were going for on album number 3 had we done it. So it wouldn't have ended up on album number 3 anyway. What we were going to do is, if we could have released this at the time of its actual release date on a double album, is that the songs would have been split between, obviously, 4 sides. You'd have 2 records. And what we were going to do is there was room for 2 additional songs to be added to the record. We were going to put a live version of something, I don't remember what, and then, as a bonus track, Seduced and Abandoned. But that never materialized because, again, the band broke up and all that stuff stopped. But it's now available. Again, this has 10 of the 14 tracks. You have to get the other one, the other sides, to get the other 4. Or you can go on to Spotify or your favorite streaming platform, and the whole album is there, as it was originally released on CD back in 2021. So, great album. We knew that we wanted to really take things up a notch, all right? And when I put this together through Elastic Stage, I wanted for this to be a really cool release because vinyl can be expensive. So I thought, okay, I want for people to get their money's worth. So I really went all out on, this is the inside, the album sleeve, okay? So this is nice full color stuff. The actual vinyl is on, I think, 180 gram or 140. I don't remember which. I think 180. And then also there's a 10-page book that comes with it. Okay, bunch of good stuff, lyrics and photos and all kinds of cool things. I just wanted this to be a really nice release. Okay, so when you buy that, just know, yeah, vinyl is pricey, but if you buy this one, you're gonna get your money's worth because there's 10 great songs on here, but also you're gonna get that bonus stuff, you know, the color photos, the book, everything like that. All right, so there you go. And again, I'm going to go through the 10 tracks that are on this. I'll do a separate video for the other sides, which are the 4 remaining tracks. All right, so here we go. We went into the studio. We spent a little more time, probably 5 or 6 days, marathon days, recording this album. We did a whole lot more tracking and overdubs. And like I said, the recording process was quite a bit different because of what Marty and Pete Bass were doing. So I just think it sounds better. I think it's a better sounding record. And I think we were all much more comfortable in the studio this time through. So let's go through each of the tracks, okay? Side one starts off with Holy, a song called Holy. Now, this was brand new at the time when we started to record this. We'd actually performed it live before we even went in to record. We had new songs that we were introducing to the set list before we actually went in to record the album. There's a show that we did in, Hillsdale, Michigan. It was a Halloween bash type thing. It was a festival of some kind. And we actually debuted the song Holy at that show. All right. So, and it's played a little bit slower than what we'd end up doing later on when we would play it live. But Holy was a song that I'd been working on for a while. I came up with the riff first, and I had that, and then I needed to come up with lyrics. And originally it was going to be called Worthy. And then I decided, no, I think I like Holy better. And once I had the chords, in the chords, really, on the verses, it's just a straight ahead E chord with a little bit of a riff in between, but it's just driving E chord, driving. And again, when you're putting together an album, you want it to be, it's all about the pacing and creating this experience, this journey. You want to start off strong, and Holy, it brings you in instantly. It's that driving song. And so it sets the pace for the rest of the album. And so Holy was the song that we decided would be the album opener. Like I said, once I had the music, then I just needed to come up with lyrics. And once I hit on what theme I wanted, it came together rather quickly. When I brought it to the band, everyone liked it, they loved it, and then they said, yeah, this is the one that should open the record. So that's what we did. Holy. And that's what you do when you're pacing an album. You want that strong album opener. And as I said in the previous video, for track 2, in our line of thinking, that should be whatever your first single is going to be. And we knew that We Are the Night was going to be the first single. That song is very anthemic, and it was written that way on purpose. Grant and I, huge Kiss fans, and in the 80s, a lot of bands were doing these anthemic songs, whether it was Rock of Ages or Come On Feel the Noise, Shout at the Devil, Rock and Roll All Night, of course, Shout It Out Loud. These songs were like rallying tunes, like everybody can get behind this. No matter if we disagree here and here and here, we can come together on this thing right here. All right. And this was written at the tail end of the whole shutdown that had taken place in 2020 through 2021. And the idea was, some people felt a certain way about it. Some people felt this way about it. But the consensus that all of us had, no matter where you stood on that issue, was, man, I'll just be glad when it's done and we can get on with life. And that's what this song is about. It's like, when you're facing those adversities and when you're facing these trials and tribulations, hey, man, at the end of it is this silver lining. And let's just keep our eye on that. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. And now that we're here, we made it through all that junk, let's celebrate. Now is the time to celebrate. And that's what We Are the Night is all about. We Are the Night. I remember Grant and I sitting in his basement. That's where we would rehearse. And we were talking about everything that was going on with this shutdown and this and that and the other. And I already had most of the music written for We Are the Night, and I had a majority of the lyrics already written as well. And I had the arrangement, the melody, I had it all there. But there were some missing pieces, like, what are some other things I can touch on lyrically? Well, Grant starts talking, and he's going on, it's like this monologue, but I'm like, man, he's making a lot of sense. I'm making notes like, yeah, that could go in the song, that could go into the song, that could fit in the song. So I go home, and wherever I had these gaps lyrically, I started putting his pieces in there that he didn't know he was providing for me. And I came back to the next rehearsal, showed it to the guys, and then I'm like, Grant, do these lyrics sound familiar to you? He's like, yeah, didn't we talk about this? I'm like, yeah. That's why you got a songwriting credit on here, because I took a lot of what you were saying and put it in the song. But we all knew, like, this is that song, that anthemic, rallying type song that people can get behind. Like, this is something where we can all come together. If you're left or right, straight or gay, black, white, male, female, this, that, the other, here's the one place we can all meet up and say, yeah, we agree on this. We can agree on this, that life, despite all the junk that comes with it, there should be a celebration of life, right? And not letting things get you down. Don't let things detract you from the true meaning of life, which is to live life to the fullest. You only get to come through here one time. You're only passing through once. Make the most of it. So that's what We Are the Night is all about. And we released that as the first single, and we sent that to quite a few different radio stations, and they played it. And I believe there's this thing called Rocks 100, and I forgot to mention this in the previous video. Rocks 100 would take all the local independent bands, and then they had their chart, kind of like Billboard. And Tears on the Wall had hit number 22, or no, not 22, it was the top 20, so it was number 17. And it actually made it all the way up to number 4 at a certain point in time and stayed there for a couple of weeks. And then also Taste of Tomorrow, also I think debuted on that chart around number 15 and made it almost all the way to 1. I think it made it to number 2. All right. So we had high hopes for We Are the Night. And when we released that to Rocks 100, it debuted at number 10 and never left the top 10 and made it to number 2. we never got to number 1, but we did make it to number 2. We Are the Night did very well for us. Other bands would come to us and say, that song is awesome. We had people from other bands, their wives, coming up to us and saying, that song is awesome. I remember Tony from Fearless, another band that played quite a few shows with us. His wife, Jen, he would say to me all the time, he's like, man, you guys have that song, and now I have to listen to it every day. I'm like, really? Why is this? He goes, because my wife puts it on repeat and just bops around the house to it all day, listening to We Are the Night. I'm like, hey, that's awesome. I love it. And that was a song that we didn't close the set with. We always closed our live set with Vengeance Is Mine, but We Are the Night was always second to last. And the first couple of times that we did it live, we did it basically what you hear on the record, on the album. And then I say, wait a minute, this is a rallying thing. This needs to have some audience participation. So we were playing in, I think it's Ann Arbor, the Blind Pig. And it was a type of a festival. Each band had like 30 or 45 minutes to play. I think there were 4 or 5 bands. And I think we were the second band to go on. And this place was packed. Man, we did a couple of shows at the Blind Pig, and they always treated us really well. They always asked us back. It was packed. And I thought, this is the time to really try to incorporate this call and response, this audience participation thing that I have in mind. This is a great place to debut this. And I don't think I even told the other guys in the band about it. I knew that they were good enough to know, okay, he's doing something different here. We're not supposed to come back into the song yet, all right? Because they're that good. They're that good. So we go on stage, and during the breakdown period, I extend it. And I'm doing this thing like, hey, repeat after me, and they're saying it back. Repeat after me, and saying it back, and getting the audience involved, and it went over like gangbusters. And you can hear, because someone filmed it for us, and you can hear in the video a guy from the other band going, how are we going to follow this? So, and that's what you want. You want to make it hard for people to follow you. You want for people to remember you. That's what it's all about. But anyway, eventually we would really work that song up with the call and response. And then we introduced the confetti machine and the fog. And we really worked that song out, and people loved it. It was always, always a gangbuster. Absolutely. So We Are the Night. There we are. Still one of my favorite tracks. It's one of those songs where it just grabs you and then you have it stuck in your head. I remember before we even put the record out, I'd taken a clip of We Are the Night, just the chorus part, and I made that my ringtone on my phone. Good way to promote. And every time somebody would call me or text, We Are the Night would come on, the chorus part. And pretty soon, I was noticing, like, after I'd get a phone call or whatever, people would be, We Are the Night. Because it would get stuck in your head. So, there you go. It's always about promotion. Always promoting. So, We Are the Night. I'll stop there. Okay? So, now, again, this is this album version. This isn't necessarily what you would find on the streaming platform or on the original CD. So it's going to be a little bit different. I'm going to give you what I have here, but it's about pacing, but some of this is different. But anyway, the next track is Splitting Hairs, Splitting Atoms. Now, I had that title, that song title, for a long time, but didn't really know what to do with it. JT brought a song in, and all he had was the music, but it's so intense. It says it's just it's just a driving, really frenetic type thing. Like it feels like at any moment it could just go off the rails. And he came to me and he said, "Could you put lyrics to this?" I'm like, "All right." So we recorded it. I took the recording home, and when I'm gonna write lyrics, I have to put myself in a state of mind. This sounds weird, and it's not like this Far East religion type stuff. I don't want to get into that. That's satanic garbage. But what I mean is I try to get in tune with the tune and try to get in tune with God, because, our lyrics most of the time are biblically based, and even if it's not biblically based, it's still biblically inspired. All right. So I wanted to do this thing, and I knew I wanted it to be about this chaotic relationship because the song was so chaotic and frenetic. I was like, this would be great for like this dysfunctional relationship. So there it is. The lyrics just started to pour out, and I'm trying to write as fast as I can think of the lyrics. I tried to change your heart, but you're not so smart. Something, but you didn't get it. But I knew I had this title, Splitting Hairs, Splitting Atoms. So if you read the lyrics, it's got this double entendre, it's talking about a relationship, but it's also, the lyrics are also describing like a nuclear bomb that could just go off at any time. And then splitting hairs, splitting atoms. When people talk about splitting hairs, it's when you have an argument over something that is so ridiculously stupid usually, but it's like, okay, you're saying potato and I'm saying potato. You're splitting hairs. But then it becomes this something bigger, because there's probably some other outlying issues as well. And now we're splitting atoms. And that's creating this fusion and this nuclear reaction and all this stuff. So I wrote the lyrics, brought it to the next rehearsal, gave it to JT, and he's like, I love these lyrics. I'm like, good. Awesome. So then I got to take this off. It's warm. I'm in South Alabama. Then it was a matter of, okay, well, who's going to sing it? Well, everyone said, well, you wrote the lyrics, you should sing it. But I didn't think I had the right voice for it. Again, I thought JT should sing it. I was like, you wrote the music and you got that voice that would fit this perfectly. And JT didn't want to do it. And then I was like, well, what if each of us, all four of us, each take a verse and do it like that? That'd be kind of cool. But that didn't work out for one reason or another. And so we said, well, Marty, what about you? You didn't sing on the first record. How would you like to sing on this record? And with this song? And Marty was like, no, I don't want to do it. So for the first while, it was me singing it. And I just really didn't feel like I was doing it justice. So I approached Marty again. I said, Marty, just give it a try. Take this recording, because we recorded all of our rehearsals. I said, take this recording so you can see how I'm singing it. So you got the pacing, you got the melody, you got, how it fits lyrically with the music. He's like, all right, fine, I'll try it. So he comes to the next rehearsal and he nails it. And then you can see this light in his eyes, like, this is kind of cool. I kind of like being a lead vocalist and, singing the song or whatever else. And then, yeah, he became the Ham, right? No, I'm just kidding. But he did great. He nailed it. It sounds great on the record. And when we do it live, you could just see the spark in his eye. Like, he was having the time of his life singing lead. Something that he never thought he would do. And there he was doing it. So there you are with Splitting Hairs, Splitting Atoms. And as I go through this, I'm trying to remember anything in particular that stands out. Oh, yes. Things that were added at the last minute when we were in the studio. For Holy, I remember one day JT came up to me and said, hey, what if on every other line, I say the last word of the sentence with you, but in my gravelly voice, but just underneath of it. So sing a song about, I can't think of the words now. Sing a song about, lift your eyes to the heavens. So he'd come in the heavens, whatever, how he does it. Just every other line, you just hear that growl in there. And I was like, yeah, that's awesome. Little things like that we were all coming up with, just added little bits, but made a big difference to the song. So that was for Holy. I can't think of anything else for We Are the Night that we did differently than what was originally presented. Or for Splitting Hairs, Splitting Atoms, I think that was just as it was. Now, on the CD, the tracking would be different, remember. But on the album, the next song is Forgiveness. Now, Forgiveness was a song that I had written maybe only a few years before. And I had this really cool acoustic melody and these chords that just they fit together perfectly. But I didn't have lyrics and I didn't have a topic. So I kind of just sat on it for a long time. And then as we got closer to this record, I was like, well, we need to have at least one ballad. We'd end up with two, but we need at least one. And so I always try to pull from either biblical themes or personal experience. And I was like, what about that time when this bad incident happened? And then I remember I was at fault, and I'm asking the person for forgiveness. But it's actually supposed to be a duet. It's supposed to be between a guy and a gal singing to each other, one line against one line, back and forth. We weren't able to do that, so I just sang the whole thing myself. But it would make more sense, I think, had we had that duality there, but whatever. So, brought that into the band. They loved it. It's very minimal. There's just me on an acoustic guitar, and then Marty on bass, and then JT only plays just the short solo, and there's no drums, but you'll hear chimes, and that's Grant. Now, when we recorded it, I remember, and this is how amazing JT is. I remember saying to JT, we got the song recorded. Can you put a guitar solo on it? He's like, yeah, what are the chords? I said, well, it's E, C, and G. I had to remember. E, C, and G. He's like, E, C, and G. Okay, goes out there, cuts this killer guitar solo, walks out, and I'm like, drop mic, or mic drop, rather. And I'm like, what the heck? That easy, that fast. It just makes it look so easy. Give him the chords, he's got it. Killer solo on there. And then with Grant, again, there's no drums, but we knew we needed something to kind of, a little bit of a segue between the verses and the choruses. And so we thought, well, chimes, that'd sound great. And so he went out there and he did it perfectly. So that was something that was added at the last minute as well. And the song just came together perfectly. I love that song, Forgiveness. The chords are beautiful. Great song. All right, next is If You. If You. Now, a majority of the music for that song I had since high school. I'm talking like 1992, 91, 92. And it was called something else. I can't tell you what it was called. It had a bad word in it. I wasn't saved yet. It was called, I'll just tell you, The Female Dog Is Back. All right, you can fill in the blanks. That's what it was originally called. And it was about, obviously, a bad relationship, a relationship that has gone bad. She said she's going to leave, and now she's trying to come back in. It kind of reminded me, and this was before Offspring, but it kind of reminds me of like Self-Esteem by Offspring, that type of thing. But this was before that song had come out. Anyway, so I had the music, and I thought when we started recording this record, man, I like that the song has this driving, great driving song, short and sweet. I said, but I can't keep these lyrics. Obviously, we're that's not us anymore. That's not me anymore. So I said, well, what can I come up with? Well, we sing about biblical stuff, and if you is about getting saved. If you. Now, here's the thing. When I first wrote the song with the new lyrics, if you, I my biblical understanding was still kind of remedial, so to speak. And so at the time, I thought, wrongly, but sincerely, thought that salvation was Romans 10:9. Confess with your mouth the Lord Jesus, or if you believe in, if you confess with your mouth the Lord Jesus and believe in your heart that God is raised him from the dead, you will be saved. All right? Made sense to me. However, as I started to grow in my biblical understanding and was introduced to the biblical truth of dispensations, thank you, Robert Breaker, I came to realize that that's not the means to salvation. People think it is, but it's not. Salvation comes through trusting on the blood, Romans 3:25, and the gospel for our salvation, given to us by our apostle Paul, is in 1 Corinthians 15:1-4, when you trust on the death, burial, and resurrection. So I had the lyrics already. If you confess with your mouth, and if you believe in your heart, and then you will be saved. And then I didn't have a last line, but as like I said, my biblical knowledge grew, I was like, what? The blood has to be in here somewhere. So right there was a perfect part to add the line, then you will be saved if you his blood impart. So you need to impart or trust on that blood of Christ in order to be saved. So I put that in there and made it much more biblically accurate. All right? Interesting story? I don't know, but it needs to be told. But it's just a frenetic song, bam, bam, bam. And it goes right into the next song, which is not on this record, but on the CD, it would go into the song Revelation Rain. And I'll talk about that when I do the review on, or the video on Day of the Lord, The Other Sides. But whenever we would do a live set, it was always If You and Revelation Rain, one right after another, because that's how it was on the original album. But here, on this record, the next track is Don't You Leave Me Tonight. Now, this is a song I wrote for my wife. We had hit a bad period of time early in our marriage, and it was through my own fault. I had made some bad financial decisions and whatever else, ego and whatever else. We lost just about everything. Home, cars, jobs. It was a mess. My wife had I can't say she had every right to leave me, because there's only a couple of reasons why you should get a divorce. And this wasn't one of them. It was nothing like that. But I wouldn't have blamed her if she had. And so this was written as a response to that, like, don't leave me. Just, I know that I've made this mess. I know that you may not have the right to, but I understand if you have the implication or the motivation to do so. I get it. But please don't. So that's what that song is about. Don't You Leave Me Tonight. It was for my wife. And the music I'd had for quite a while. I just didn't have lyrics for it. But I loved the chord melody. I loved the sound, everything. And so Don't You Leave Me Tonight, I brought that to the band. And it starts off very slow. It's just mostly the acoustic guitars, a little bit of bass. And Grant, in the studio, while we're recording it, came up with this cool thing where he just hits the toms, doom, doom, every so often, and it fit so perfectly. That was not originally a part of the song. Again, we were just bringing ideas and sometimes just spontaneity. And he added that part, and it made the song so much better. But eventually the song picks up, and it kicks into this driving, electric guitars, and the bass and the drums are all pounding, because it's about this relationship and this back and forth and chaos and all this stuff. And then it ends just as sweetly as it started. Okay? Because it's resolved itself. All right? Great track, great song. And there was more I wanted to do with that song. Actually, that one, and on the previous album, we had a song called Alone. My original demos actually had strings, violins and stuff and cellos on it. And I wish we could have done that in the studio for Alone on the previous record and for Don't You Leave Me Tonight on this album. I think it would have elevated it that much more. But as recorded, still great. Great, great, great. So that's the end of side 1 on this version. So we flipped it over and now we're on side 2. And the song that starts it off is Crown of Thorns. Now, this song I had written back in the early to mid 90s. And it was originally called, Coming for You. And what I had was, I had 4 different riffs that I thought, I could build songs around each one of these riffs and have 4 really good songs. And then I remember I was at my cousin's house. Okay, and she had 2 stepsisters, so they're my step cousins. And one of the step cousins was having this bad relationship with her boyfriend, and I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but I was sitting in a room just playing my guitar, and I could hear her on the phone with her boyfriend, and I'm listening to it, and I'm like, wow, this is really good for a song. So I'm writing stuff down, right? I'm like, okay, I got to get a pen and paper, and I'm writing the stuff down, like, and the song was Coming for You. Now I decided then, I'm like, I'm going to take these 4 riffs that I was going to make 4 separate songs for, and I'm going to put it all together, and just going to make one fantastic mega song. The song, and I didn't know this at the time, but I found this out later, Pretty Woman by Roy Orbison, was originally 4 different ideas for 4 different songs. And the producer said, put those 4 ideas together and you'll have one really great song. And that became Pretty Woman by Roy Orbison. So same thing here. Put this all together. Is probably the most complex song I've ever written. Not that the chords are these, G minor 7s and all this kind of stuff and arpeggio and all that. It's not. The chords are pretty straightforward. It's just all the pacing, the time changes, and the different changes. There's a lot of changes. It's got a pretty complex arrangement to it. Vocal or lyrically, what it would become, it had these different vocal parts going back and forth, back and forth. A very complex song. But at the time, like I said, it was just called Coming for You. So that kind of just sat there for a long while. I did record a demo version of it with my stepbrother, Jason. And I have that. And it's on the YouTube channel if you want to check it out. The original version called Coming for You. But when we came together to record this record, even, prior to recording, a couple of months before we actually went into record, I'd always wanted to do Crown of Thorns, because by then I'd put new lyrics to it, biblically based, Crown of Thorns. I'd recorded a demo of it before the band, about 3 years before the band had come together, and I had that, and I played it for different people, and they'd say, yeah, it's a great song, but it's too much, I can't do it. And I remember even in the band that Grant and I went in together, prior to Revelation Rain, when we were doing mostly covers, that was one of the originals that I originally brought in, and the guys just couldn't get it. They couldn't get it. And I was like, wow, I got this song that I think is great lyrically and musically and thematically, and it's just never going to be anything more than this demo that I have. So I kind of just gave up on it. I was like, well, I guess it's just a song that's never going to get recorded by a band, and it's a song that I'll never get to play it live because nobody can do it. Well, these guys, and by these guys I mean JT, Grant, and Marty, were so good. I brought it to the band. I said, guys, if we really put some time and effort into this song, I think we can pull it off, and it will be a huge accomplishment. It's going to be like epic. Okay, this is going to be, our moment. Excuse me. So I showed them all the parts. Okay, this is this part, this is the guitar part, this is the bass. Not that I told them exactly what to play, other than, the actual chords. But I showed them the song, and we started rehearsing on it, and we worked on it, and we worked on it, and we would build piece by piece, and then we put those pieces together. So for the first rehearsal, it might just be intro and first verse. Next time it'd be intro, first verse, and bridge. And then intro, first verse, bridge, chorus. And then we'd start okay, now we'll introduce the second verse. But there's a change here because when you get to where you think the bridge is going to be, now it's going to change to this other thing that's not previously there. And we slowly got to the point where we could play it all the way through. So we go into the studio, and I think when we came to Crown of Thorns to record, all of us were kind of like, we were, figuratively on the edge of our seats, like, are we going to pull this off? Because we always recorded live. We would record live and then go back and do overdubs. But we'd always go in and just play it as a 4-piece live. And we always tried to do it just 1 or 2 takes, because after that, you lose the intensity, you lose the excitement. So we go in, and we're all just kind of like, all right, I hope we can pull this off. And we nailed it. First take. Nailed it. First take. And so, yeah, Crown of Thorns came together perfectly. We did it live a couple of times. I think it went over okay. I think people like it. It's just that it's such a long song, and it goes on all these different bends and turns and whatever else. I think unless you're a real music fan, you're not going to get it. If you're just there for like a good time, like We Are the Night, Taste of Tomorrow, Tears on the Wall, just hit me over the head, this song won't fit in. For people that are music lovers that like a little bit more of a complex song, and plus lyrically something that's just, vital to biblical themes, this is a song for you. Crown of Thorns. But we nailed it, and I was so happy, and I was so proud of all of us, especially of JT, Grant, and Marty, because they were the 3 that finally brought my realization to life. I finally had this song on album, and I had 3 guys in the band that could play it live, and we did. And I remember we returned to the Blind Pig, and by then JT was no longer in the band. He had a family issue and had to move to Oklahoma. We had our new guitar player, Tyler, and again, it was one of those things like, okay, 3 of us can play this. Can he? And he could, and he nailed it. And I remember we played it at the Blind Pig at one of our shows there. And like I said, it went over well. I just think it kind of went over a lot of people's heads, but that's okay. You don't know until you try. But yeah, it's a pretty long song, and that's why side 2 of this album version only has 4 songs, because they're all pretty long songs, or a couple of them are. All right, so that's Crown of Thorns. I'm trying to think if there's anything we added to that later, or that was added that wasn't originally brought. I don't think so. Crown of Thorns. No, I think that's it. All right, the next song is all JT. He wrote the music, he wrote the lyrics, he sings it. I chime in on the choruses, just doing harmonies, an octave lower and an octave above him. And it's The Ice Lord. The Ice Lord. This song, thematically, it's unlike anything else on either of these records. Like I said, most of our songs are biblically based or based off of personal experience, relationships, or We Are the Night, celebration of life type stuff. This is kind of like if you stepped into Dungeons and Dragons, but your weapon was an electric guitar. This is what you would get. And JT just sings this song so intense. It's growling. When we would play it live, it always went over well, really well live. We had intended to work it up like a whole thing, a whole spectacle built around JT for this song, and we never got to it because the band ended up disbanding, and then, like I said, JT had to leave. But we were going to build it up to where it was going to be JT, just a strobe light over him, so it looked real intense, and then he'd do this wicked guitar solo, and then Grant would come in with these pounding drums, boom, 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 and then right into The Ice Lord. It didn't happen, but that was the plan. But anyway, The Ice Lord, great song. It's, like I said, all JT, other than, us playing our instruments too, and then me on the choruses. And Marty gets a one-liner at the end of every chorus. The Ice Lord rides on high. That's Marty all by himself. And it's just great. And I don't know if that was something that we had done prior to the recording or not, but Marty, that was his idea. But a great song, and it was nice to have something that was just radically different. So there we are. The next song, I'm Your Way. I'm Your Way is a song I wrote back in, again, the early 90s about a relationship, about a girl. You know, like, hey, you know what? You've got all these problems. Maybe that ex-boyfriend of yours is a jerk and whatever else, but hey, I'm your way out of this. I'm your way. And that's what the song is about. I'm Your Way. And it's great. It starts off with just a mellow acoustic thing, and then it just kicks in. Bam. And the idea was songs like Rock Bottom by Kiss, or especially songs off Paul Stanley's solo record, where he would do stuff like Tonight You Belong to Me. Love that song. Start off just acoustic, and then all of a sudden, you know, the guitars and the bass and the drums all kick in. And then it might slow down again and then end on that high note. And that's where I was going with I'm Your Way back in the early 90s. I think I recorded a demo of it. We've played that, and I've played that in several different bands. And it's a song that I know Grant and JT really enjoyed playing because it's got that driving. So it's just a really driving song, kind of like Holy or New Kind of Man, but just a great, great song. Now, when we went in to record, I remembered something. Speaking of Kiss, when they went in and did a song like, oh gosh, what's the one? Is it Anything for My Baby or Rock Bottom or something? I can't remember which one. But Paul talks about how, bands like BTO, underneath the electric guitars, a lot of times they take a 12-string, and they would mimic the chords that the electric guitars were doing on a 12-string, and it made it a little more chimey. It gave it a little more of a ring to it. And so maybe it's Anything for My Baby. I don't know. One of the songs off Dressed to Kill, Paul said that they added 12-string underneath of it to kind of mimic what BTO did, to kind of give it a more ringing, chimey type sound to it. So I was like, hey, what if we did that with I'm Your Way? So we added a 12-string to the acoustic part, but also all the way through the song, when the guitars are driving, there's a 12-string, and you'll hear it driving right along with all of it. And then in the section where it breaks down again, it used to be just the acoustic guitar would be playing. And then I was like, well, wait a minute. Remember that song, Sure Know Something by Kiss, again, where when they come out of the guitar solo, they do that 4-part harmony, something like that. I was like, what if we did that right here in I'm Your Way? So that was added last minute. And it just elevated the song. It just made it sound a lot better. It gave it some depth. So again, that was stuff that was just being added in studio. All right, so I'm Your Way. Last but not least, Jericho Must Fall. Now, this ends the album on purpose. It's intentionally placed there because it's one of those great album closers. Just like on the previous album, Vengeance Is Mine closed it out. It's one of those songs that it ends the album. In fact, Vengeance Is Mine would always be the last song of our live set because it just closes everything out. Jericho Must Fall we'd start putting it toward the middle, because we started to think of our live set almost in album terms, and that, you would have a side 1 and then a side 2. First part of the show, second part. First act, second act. And so Jericho Must Fall would always kind of be the end of the first part of the set, and then we'd usually go into New Kind of Man, which would start the second part of the live set. If you play in a band, you know what I'm getting at. So anyway, Jericho Must Fall. Marty wrote that. That was a new composition. He brought the music in. He showed us how to play it, and we recorded it. And then he said to me, well, can you put lyrics to this? I said, sure. He goes, okay, I want it to be called Jericho Must Fall. So he knew, at least thematically, what he wanted. I want this about Jericho and how, the walls fell and all that. So Jericho Must Fall. He gave me the title. And then he said, also, I would like for you to add a coda to it, kind of like the end of Vengeance Is Mine. And I talked about that in the previous video. Vengeance Is Mine is all intense, and then it slows down. And then it's got this this just like an acoustic section, and then it builds back up, and it ends on that driving note, driving electric guitars and drums or whatever. He said, I kind of want to have you add something like that to the end of Jericho Must Fall. So I'm like, all right. So I go home, we have a recording of it, and we made a recording of it. I go home and I start putting the lyrics together. I'm like, Jericho Must Fall. I can't just start there. I won't have enough for the whole song. The song was quite lengthy. I'm like, I can't just talk about that. I'm going to have to go back in the Bible, go back a little bit farther. So I start with Moses, when he was saved from the water by Pharaoh's daughter, and then he becomes, he becomes a foe, and then he leads them out of Egypt, and now they're going to go into the land of Canaan, and God tells them, you don't need your swords and whatever else. You just walk around there, and when I say shout, you start shouting, the walls will come down. And that's what I did. I just took it from there and brought it to its logical conclusion where the walls come down. And then for the coda, I had this chord progression that I'd played around with for a long time. And so it's only 3 chords. It's G, F, and E. All right. And I was like, I can build something around that. It'll sound cool. So it's acoustically played, G, F, and E. And then it goes into crunch guitars, G, F, and E. And I was like, well, what can I put lyrically? Because on Vengeance is Mine, it's saying, don't let me go. I don't know, God, don't let go. Here is my soul. God, don't let go. I don't remember it all. Anyway, it has this little lyrical part. For this one, I came up with, all praise to the Lamb, I am that I am. In other words, declaring that Jesus is God. Because he is. And it's something that we sing it together, and it's something like the audience could join in. It's almost like if you see people in church and they're doing this, it's kind of like that. So it builds from this acoustic part to the electric part. We're doing that line, or those 2 lines, and then at the end of it, we just sing it a cappella, and then end on a power chord. Now in studio, lyrically, let me go back a little bit. I sing the verses. There's a bridge part that JT sings. When we get to the chorus, Marty's saying this thing, about, talking about Rahab, basically. He's singing about Rahab throughout the chorus. I'm doing this thing, Murray Jury Contest Dat, which is Latin for Jericho Must Fall. I wanted to do it in Hebrew, but it was just way too hard. I couldn't do it. So I thought, well, Latin will do. So I'm doing that every other line while Marty's doing this long disposition on Rahab. And in between what I'm doing, JT's doing this, that Egyptian. Okay. But also we had, and this is the thing I've been forgetting, is we had JT's daughter do guest vocals on this song. So she's doing that little Egyptian thing too, with JT underneath of hers, perfect harmony. By the way, we had guest vocals on a number of songs, Holy and We Are the Night. Pete Bass sang backing vocals on a couple of those tracks. So that's something I'd missed too. But Jericho Must Fall turned out perfectly on the record, but also live, and that was something that I always enjoyed doing Jericho Must Fall live, because especially when we got to that part, the all praise to the Lamb, I am that I am. It's just a bold declaration of who Jesus is, God in the flesh. And it's just something that it lifts you up, and people sing along because it's easy to memorize. It's just 2 lines. So yeah, good stuff. And that is how the album ends. Again, it was produced by Pete Bass, recorded at the time it was called Soundfield, and I keep saying it's called Liberty Flagship. I have that backward. It's now called Flagship Liberty. Okay, so that's the studio now that Pete Bass runs. Flagship Liberty. All right, so there it is, guys. Day of the Lord by Revelation Rain, our second album. There we go. And like I said, we really worked this release. Like I said, it comes with the 10-page color book, and yeah, just good stuff. So there you are, Day of the Lord by Revelation Rain. You guys take care, and God bless.